would you like to increase your work satisfaction 2.2 times? Not a bad outcome to think about, right? Well, that's what happens to those who enjoy a sense of belonging at work. But how do you get there, you ask? It's true that, to use Angie Weiland-Crosby's inspiring quote, home is a magical word. House exists, but home belongs. But all that beautiful belonging typically goes away the minute we step foot out of the house and into the workplace. So for all of you, my friends, returning to the office this year, this one's for you. You've lost that loving feeling. Whoa, that loving feeling. Oops, I think I got carried away with my Top Gun moment here. But seriously, over 60% of the workforce is currently feeling lonely. And when one person on the team is lonely, the performance of the whole team goes down. So nurturing that belonging feeling at work is a worthy, and I'd even dare to say pressing goal. But before I share the goodies on how to create that belonging we all crave at work, let me tell you about a related experiment worth knowing about that happened roughly 15 years ago on a cold January morning, much like today. This experiment was organized by the Washington Post, who hired one of the greatest violinists in the world, Joshua Bell. While he didn't dress up for the occasion, Bell played some of the most difficult violin pieces ever composed on a Stradivarius worth $3.5 million at rush hour in a subway station. Just to put things into perspective, when Bell plays in large music halls, he makes about $1,000 a minute. And that's numbers from 15 years ago. What a show, right? Nearly 1,100 people had the chance to hear him for free in the 45 minutes that he played that day. If you had been there, how long would you have stopped to listen and appreciate the moment? Chances are, you wouldn't have stopped at all. That day, only 7 people slowed down to take in the performance of this internationally acclaimed virtuoso, and that number even includes a young child. And yes, the acoustics were surprisingly good in the subway that day. Now, the first time that I heard this story, I was convinced that I would be one of the 7 who had stopped to listen, right? And you were probably thinking the same about yourself too. But if we're honest with ourselves, we're not that different from the hundreds of people who kept walking at a quick pace. We too can form opinions very quickly without really putting any thought into it. A random guy playing an instrument in the subway is something most of us have seen dozens of times, and so it doesn't appear to be really noteworthy, at least not on the surface. And when we're headed to work, we're busy, we're preoccupied. Sometimes we may be on autopilot or in problem-solving mode, tackling our to-do lists or ruminating about lingering issues that we were not able to solve during the previous days. And so we miss out on some important clues about what's going on around us and what's going on below the surface. It's not surprising that we can't connect with one another at work or that we don't feel like we belong. So here's my tip for you today. When you are with your coworkers, you can't just walk on by and go straight to business. You have to stop, listen, and engage, even if just for a moment. And now you might think, MJ, Joshua Bell in the subway? That was a great carpe diem moment. But Bob at the water cooler? That's a whole different story. But is it really? Think about your mom or your best friend or your favorite uncle. To someone else, they might just be another random person or another boring colleague even, not really worth stopping for. But to you, they mean the world. The difference comes from how much you know each other and how much you've each invested into the relationship. And so that's a replicable process. So all those ordinary colleagues of ours, they have the potential to bring a ton of beauty into our lives and make work feel a little bit more like home if we only open the door. So let's take the extra few seconds to look at them in the eyes with the subtext, I appreciate you, or thanks for all you do, or even let's be friends in our heads. In other words, let's act as if we already loved them and that will come. Because thanks to mirror neurons, we can feel what's at the back of other people's heads even when they don't say it. And I'm not saying that we are mind readers, but other people's emotions, we can feel them when we look in their eyes. And simply changing our subtext to something appreciative is all it'll take for your coworkers to feel like they belong when they are around you. And since relational energy tends to self-replicate, that will work both ways in no time. Now, here's the next layer of this magic. People who feel like they belong are not only more satisfied at work, but they even tend to be 1.5 times more productive than those who don't. And that makes sense because the lonely people were less productive, so we're closing the buckle here. And couldn't we all use a lift in productivity, right? Now, if bringing up that appreciation inside is difficult for you to do at work, remember that Joshua Bell experiment. There's probably a lot of beauty in your coworkers that you have just been passing by, so be on the lookout for it. And if you need the extra encouragement, all the details of this experiment are in the description below. Oh, and while you're there, why don't you give this video a like and take an extra second to subscribe? That way, you'll be sure to receive all of the positivity. Thank you very much. When we look for what's good in others, connecting and belonging become a breeze. And then you've got that loving feeling. Unless, of course, we are feeling too self-conscious or overwhelmed or we're trying too hard to impress. In these cases, the solution we need is in this other video. Or maybe we are just having a judgmental day, happens to all of us, in which case,